Pandas are nice, aren't they? Cute. Cuddly. The one bear that won't eviscerate you, probably. They're not particularly exciting, per se, but there's something calming about their leisurely existence. Now, I don't personally expect to be confronted with much dynamic in the way of pandas, outside of the occasional Jack Black masterpiece. So you can imagine my surprise when, while watching the first episode of popular seasonal anime Jujutsu Kaisen, within a couple of minutes, the opening rolls and, whoa, who's that? It's Parkour Panda, vaulting over a knee-high wall right into my heart. The show already starts right in the middle of a fraught interrogation scene, in media res, an ultimatum backed with the threat of death thrust upon our protagonist. The promise of action pandas was enough to truly hook me. Just the thought of meeting my new proportionally accurate panda friend, just go with it, enough to keep me going through the entire show by itself. And yet, when the panda in question does eventually make his debut in the show, it's disappointing. Jujutsu Kaisen is a supernatural battle series, one in which we follow the protagonist, Itadori Yuji, as he is forcefully inducted into a world in which curses manifest and kill, becoming possessed by the king of curses in the process. The anime was My Anime List's most watched series of 2020, and the manga it's based on was the 5th best-selling of the same year. Jujutsu is originally a manga series that's to this day published in Weekly Shonen Jump, alongside series such as One Piece, Demon Slayer, and most of the other massive shonen serials that dominate the Japanese anime and manga scene. Having over 130 chapters released in an environment that's as competitive as this is a real accomplishment in its own right. Shonen Jump tends to release new series in waves, waits a minimum of somewhere around 10 to 20 chapters to see how popular they prove, then culls the worst performing. All this is to say that the series is clearly one that's well liked. A sentiment that I'd agree with. The show features a lot of memorable and, for lack of a better word, quirky characters. They've all got very strongly defined personalities and play well with the main focus of the show, the fast-paced action. My panda disappointment isn't to do with the anime so much in and of itself. It's the opening. Jujutsu Kaisen's anime opening is very good. It's a minute and a half of stylish and fluid animation set to a really catchy song in which we get teased key cast members and the conflict between them. It's got a lot of visual metaphors that I definitely get. All in all, it does a very good job at capturing the tone of the show and getting you excited to watch more. The best bit to me, though, like all things in life, is the bit with the panda in it. Probably not intentionally, though. Surrounding the bit with the panda in it are various cool characters hinting at their all-important powers. A girl readies a naginata, assuming a combat pose. A boy unzips the collar covering his face, revealing the mysterious patterns around his mouth and on his tongue. And then a panda shows up and does just like a normal hop over a wall. It comes up maybe to the top of his legs. I don't know why they thought that this was the best way to show how cool this panda is, but I'm really glad that they did. To be fair, that move probably would be quite impressive if a panda did it. Regardless, my expectations of the panda were very high. What else could they be? Among a cadre of magic teens was a panda with all the unique abilities of a guy in his mid-30s. This had to be set up for the best character in animated history. The panda shows up while the two main supporting characters are grieving. They believe that the protagonist has died, nobly sacrificing his life to save others. This takes place in episode 5, so he isn't. Having known him for 2 weeks in World, the characters are a bit sad, but not massively crushed or anything. This show might have an issue with pacing. It's after 10 seconds of dwelling on this that the panda shows up to break the tension, and he does. But here we get to our two major problems. First, the panda is, bad to look at. You ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender? There's an episode where the gang deal with this angry alien-looking nature spirit, and at the end of the episode he calms down and turns into the regular-looking panda he was always meant to be. This is the reverse of that. The panda in the opening was animated in this really fluid, dynamic style, which results in him actually looking kind of fluffy. This panda, on the other hand, is smooth. There's something about his stretched, oblong body and slender man arms that reminds you that he isn't real, and more importantly, that he should never be real. The bear scares me. The second issue is that the bear is boring. The panda speaks and acts like a regular guy, and that's really it. He's strong, I guess, and probably has some powers or something, but that's nothing that separates him from the others. That he's so wildly different is only commented on in passing, and never called attention to again. This isn't actually a bad thing by itself. I haven't mentioned it, but after watching what there is of the series, I read the manga to see how it measured up. The scene in the manga plays out exactly the same, and is absolutely fine. The first difference comes in the medium itself. When the panda turns up in the anime, it feels abrupt, interrupting an emotional low point for our characters just for a joke the show doesn't even feel like giving enough time. But with a manga, the reader can help dictate the pace. When you fill in the gaps in between the panels in your head, you can linger on any point just enough to make both the lows and highs stick. So in the manga, the panda doesn't interrupt so suddenly, and the joke of his character concept isn't swept away so quickly, because the reader gets to give each scene enough time to sink in. The anime reproduces the manga too faithfully here. Whereas the reader was filling the gaps in between the panels before, the anime hasn't, and gives each one an equal amount of time. The second difference is the anime opening, in that it exists. In the manga, his debut scene is the first time we get to see him. The gag of just having a talking panda be part of the gang is as much of a surprise to us as it is to Kugisaki, who's the one to point out how weird it is that he's there. Yet in the anime, that same character has been set up for weeks. Every time the opening plays, his existence gets reinforced and hyped up. So when he turns up in the anime for a bit of a throwaway gag, it can't be anything but disappointing. You want the characters to touch on it more, and they don't really. The opening sets you up for an entrance that was never meant to be that exciting. Anyway, that's all my opinions on anime pandas. It's worth mentioning that the panda does get more interesting as the series continues, and while the opening sets him up a little too much, it did do its job in reeling me into the series, so you could definitely say it's a good one. That's it for the video. If you disagreed with me on anything I said, then let me know in the comments, and I'll reply agreeing with you, but I'll still secretly think I'm right.